Welcome back, everyone. So today I want to add some clarification to some of the things that transpired last week in the Lori Vallow case during court. And the answer that Robert Wood, the DA, had finally answered the affidavits that Lori had her attorneys had submitted for disclosure of information and requests for what evidence they plan to use. Now, in a nutshell, this is what Lori, they had filed a lot of motions and a lot of requests, and they've been struck down multiple times for their bizarre requests, and some of their requests, the court just said, no, we're not dealing with this. You either filed it too early or you didn't file it in a timely manner, but anyways, there were two requests that Mr. Pryor had filed that they hadn't gotten around to because of delays, because of COVID, and because, well, the DA really didn't have to answer to them at all at any point, and he could have really, ignored them even lengthier than now. But he finally answered them this past week, and they were requests by the defense to narrow down what statements, what witnesses they plan on using at trial. This is not just for the misdemeanor case, but this is for the felony charges that her and Chad, her co-defendant, are facing. And they wanted to know, her attorney wanted to know, well, are you going to be using this? Are you going to be using that? Are you going to be calling this person? Are you going to be using this testimony? Are you going to be using that person? They wanted to clarify it down. So their detectives, their private investigator, wasn't going to have to spend the next 300 hours digging through thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands of possible documents that the state already has in this case. What they wanted clarification on are all the following. They wanted to know, are you going to be using any evidence from these certain people or these different types of groups, or do you have anything in light of these areas? Police statements and testimony. Statements from police officers and testimony and who may be called from the beginning of this case through Hawaii, during the extradition from Hawaii back to Idaho, the search of the farm, everything, anything that has to do with police. They wanted to know, are you going to be using any statements from that at all? And if so, who do you plan on calling? And then there was the body cam footage. They wanted to know what body cam footage they maybe are going to be using. And again, from the beginning of the case, from when the police first showed up looking for JJ at the home that what they were called out for. Body cam footage from Hawaii, body cam footage again from the farm, and anywhere else they may have investigated, along with a storage locker. Anytime there was body cam footage at all, they wanted to know where they're going to be using it. Statements made by Lori Vallow to the police again when they showed up. Statements that she made, during her extradition back from Hawaii, and anything she may have said at the actual court itself, or when she was being processed through into jail there in Idaho. Interviews. They wanted to know who they had interviewed, what they planned on, what people they plan on interviewing, or everything. And that's such a large, scope of things. They wanted to know everything. Who are you talking to? What evidence do you have? I mean, they have the right to know what evidence they plan on using, so they're not sandbagged at trial. But the way that he worded it was such a large scope. He wanted to know anybody and everybody that they possibly could have interviewed, and what that person may have said about Lori and Chad. Jail records and statements that Lori may have made to other inmates. Now, we know of several statements that she made to the jailhouse snitch, and statements that she made to another inmate who, where she was going through the bail trial, hearings and everything else, and she said, I want to see if all this is worth $1 million. All that stuff, everything. They wanted to know if they plan on using any of that, and either one of the two cases. I'm talking like the misdemeanor and the felonies with Chad. If they plan on using any of that, in either one of those. CCTV footage. Now, this is important, and you need to think about the CCTV footage. We know we've seen the little clip of the last days of JJ's life, where JJ runs out the front door to go play with other friends. They're in the courtyard area of where Lori lived at the time with JJ and Ty Lee. But the police may have footage, CCTV footage, that shows the last day of Ty Lee, the last day of JJ's life. Who was coming and going from the home? Did Lori arrive back from Yellowstone with just Alex Cox, and then Alex and her left? Was that on CCTV from the neighbors? We don't know. There could be CCTV footage of that. That is interesting. And it would be very damning to Lori if only Alex and Ty Lee came back from Yellowstone and then she returned later on with JJ, and then Chad Daybell. It would show that she knew, in advance what was going to be happening or what could possibly be happening. And then if there is him leaving the apartment there with just Ty Lee on that day, or him leaving with JJ, or either or both, if those are caught on CCTV from the neighbors, that'd be extremely damaging to both of them, but mainly to Lori. In this case, in conspiracy, because again, the two are being tried together. Jail records, visitation, and phone calls that Lori may have made. Now, they can't record the phone calls if she's talking to her attorney. That's client privilege, between the attorney and the attorney and the actual defendant in the case. They can't record those calls, but they can record everything that she said to. Maybe she was talking to a friend of hers, to Melanie, or maybe she was talking to her son. Anyone, at all, or to somebody else. If she made any other phone calls, they would have recordings of that. And they wanted to know, the defense wanted to know, are you going to be using any of those phone calls or any information from phone calls or visitation, or anybody that may have come to see her or drop things off or put money on her books? Because we know she's been surviving somehow. Somehow, Lori has gotten money on her jail inmate account so she can buy personal hygiene items and other snack goods. Who put that money on the account? Was it just Chad? Was there anybody else that came to visit her? We don't know, but they're not releasing that information right now. But it's very interesting also to keep an eye on that in the upcoming trial. Did anybody else visit her? Witness statements. They wanted to know if there was any other witness statements that that somebody may have said, Lori, this is her beliefs or whatever. There's a lot of room there when it comes to witness statements, and it's very vague to ask her, what other witness statements are you planning on using? Again, the DA has to tell them, this is who we've talked to, this is who we've interviewed, this is what they may have said, but they don't have to give them 100%, but they have to tell them they talked to these people, they interviewed these people, and so on. Or they don't even have to tell them if they're going to use it. But, especially in light of this, but we'll get to that at the end here. Next part, defendant's prior records with law enforcement. We know that Lori has had a long, sordid relationship with law enforcement over the years. And going back to her divorce with Joseph Ryan and then with Charles Vallow, there were several times where the police were involved or called out to her home for either wellness checks or for disputes with custody, and we know in the Joseph Ryan case where Alex Cox actually used a stun gun on Joseph Ryan because he was interfering, or he perceived something that he was doing something on behalf of Lori Vallow in this case because of the custody agreement. He said, if you ever get in the way, I will kill you. These are all statements that can be used in this trial coming up to prove Lori knew that Alex Cox was the enforcer of anything and got rid of anybody. They can definitely use that in this case. So that's damaging, really damaging. It's going to be really damaging. And they don't know at this point, does Chad Daybell know exactly what Lori's past is when it comes to her involvement with law enforcement and everything else? Has Lori been truthful to him? We don't know. That might be something that if he finds out in court about, he might want to, kind of head back and say, I would like to talk to the DA and see if there's some kind of an agreement I can get, we can get here for me. Next part, forensics reports and those who they plan to call in as witnesses, expert witnesses on the discovery of the home in the place where JJ and Ty Lee were eventually found. Who are they calling in? What experts do they have? What statements do they have? What evidence do they have involved in that? Next is possible forensic findings from inside Lori's place of residency, the storage locker, the home where Chad lived with his wife Tammy, all the outbuildings on that property, any type of forensics at all from everything from the case, and anything they may have found on Lori or Chad while they were in Hawaii, or any kind of, also putting aside that actual evidence there, forensics examination of bank records and phone calls for the entire time, from the time that JJ and Ty Lee disappeared to the time that they got Lori back, from Hawaii, extradited her back and got her in jail, and then the arrest of Chad. They can look through everything, how they spent money, who they gave money to, who they made phone calls to, everything, coming and going from everything. They can look at it all. They wanted to know, what do you have in that regards as well. The other part is court records, divorce records, custody records. Again, statements that she made to the court. Can they call into question where Lori had to go see a psychiatrist because that they were afraid of her mental stability? Can they call that in? There might be an issue there between client privilege and her psychiatrist that she spoke with, but they could probably call that into question, or at least try to get that into evidence, especially if they go for the murder case later on. Tangible records and testing of evidence and reports that they may have from time of death, decomposition, and everything else with Ty Lee and JJ. Then there is TV footage from not only from mainstream media who caught them in Hawaii, but any evidence that where they may have gathered it from secondary sources. I know for a fact that there were a lot of web sleuths like me, amateur detectives out there who were in Hawaii who did get video footage of both Lori and Chad taking walks on the beach, window shopping, and just basically relaxing and having a grand time of themselves while they knew, that both the kids were dead and buried on Chad's property. I mean, but it'd be hard to prove that they knew that then, but they knew it. We all know it. They did. But all of this was release of information that they wanted to know. The defense wanted to know. Well, what evidence do you possibly have, and what are you planning on using? I reached out, with just this list of things to an attorney, and I asked him, how many documents are we possibly looking at here? He said on the short end, maybe 8,000, maybe 10,000, depending on how long this case is and how many experts and police officers are involved and how many forensic examiners have been involved. He said it could be 10, 12, 13, 15,000, somewhere in there. And now comes the important part. They asked Robert Wood to, in court on Friday. Tell us what you want. And he looked at them and said, basically, you want to know what evidence I'm going to use in the trials? Well, it's right there. It's all in discovery. Go ahead, get your private investigators, and go dig. Make an appointment with the state of Idaho and start digging through it yourself. You want to know what I'm going to use? It's all right there. Basically, saying, what, you guys question my morality, my ethics, and everything else in court. You think I'm going to help you now? Oh, hell no. You guys can go look it up yourselves. And it's right there. So you thought you were going to be able to cut this down to maybe 300 hours of total investigation time? No, no, no. No, now you're going to have to spend the full amount of time, and you've had all this time. If you haven't been on it right up to this point, you're going to be behind. And it's not my responsibility to make this easy on you. So that's basically what we learned from Friday in court. Along with there's one additional person who is going to be called as a defense witness, because the defense, both Lori's attorney and Chad's attorney, are still calling into question the fairness and possibility of seating a jury trial where they're at. Apparently, the two sides, two sets of defendants' attorneys, hired a lady who, and her name is Rhonda Harper, to do a survey in the area to see if if she went out and asked, have you formed an opinion about the Lori Vallow and Chad Daybell case? Yes, I have. Is it a positive, or negative? We don't know what the actual question was on the survey, but you can bet that it was slanted against the DA in this case. And it's what they're basically going to be showing is, look, we went out and surveyed 5,000 people, and of the 5,000, 96% said that they formed an opinion about this case. So there's no way we can get a fair trial here in this area. Let's move this off to a bigger venue, another county, someplace where we have a larger jury selection. They're still going to argue that. They're going to still try that. But, I don't know if it'll be successful. I highly doubt it. But then again, I'm not an attorney, and I don't know how the legal, things like this, work. If they can argue that still at this point, but they're going to try. So that's what we learned again on Friday from the court case. And good luck to Lori and Chad's attorneys, because now if they haven't been searching through everything, they're way behind. And all this is in evidence in boxes, and they have to make arrangements through the court to go see it, just like as if the defense had a whole bunch of documents. They've had their people looking at it all along, or they have to make arrangements for them, especially with COVID going on. You can't just go to the courthouse like a normal detective during a normal year and just go look, have your detective look through a box full of documents and say, okay, this is what we got. And this is what I found, and make copies of documents and stuff like that. But nope, they have to make arrangements to see each other's documentation and witness lists and any kind of statements or video footage they may have. So good luck again, Lori and Chad, because you're both going to fry in hell for what you did. Well, that's the end of the video. I hope you truly enjoyed this video. If you did, give this video a thumbs up, leave a comment, share it with your friends. Along with, if you would like to see more of these videos and more content from me, there is the subscribe button down there and the bell icon for this channel. Thank you very much for watching today, and God bless you, and stay safe out there.